John Muir once said, "I'd rather be in the mountains thinking of God
than in church thinking about mountains."
We say, why not do both?
Why not do both? We believe church can be different.
We believe faith and science can inform each other.
We believe truth is revealed in many traditions and throughout creation.
We believe we can make a tangible impact in the struggle for justice locally and around the world.
We believe we can make a tangible impact in the struggle for justice locally and around the world.
We believe we can make a tangible impact in the struggle for justice locally and around the world.
We want to be your community in the wilds of life.
We want to be your community in the wilds of life. Join the adventure.
Experience a holy connection with creation.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us at Church in the Wild.
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 First of all, we need a video like that. But go forward. I think that's an amazing video.
Yeah. That is aerial drone footage of Sky Lake. And we try to use pictures of Sky Lake or pictures of our area in all of our media. And you saw the link for our website there. That's a great place you can go to find out more about Church in the Wild. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we got started on this adventure. And I have some questions to ponder for you all as well. So it seems like so long ago, right? 2019 was when I felt this call to plant a church where I could really, I kept thinking about, all of our local churches, and I just kept thinking, I just want some place where I could be really authentically myself, even as the pastor, where I wouldn't necessarily be expected to have all the answers, that we could sort of ask questions together and just sort of bring down like the hierarchy that tends to form. And so I was feeling this like desire as I was praying, and God said, well, you can make that. You could make a church. And I said, no. And tried to push that away for as long as possible, but it kept nagging me, and none of my ideas were any good. Like every time I thought of, well, I could maybe do this or that, then I'd find something out and it wasn't going to work. Until one day I heard myself say the words, I just want to be the pastor at Sky Lake. And I felt God say, there you go. That's it. And then all of a sudden, all these different ideas and this vision just started to come forth in my mind. And then I did the really scary thing of telling people about that. And they got excited. So I started down this, small trail of here's this idea of a church that would meet at Sky Lake and connect with God in nature, in creation. And each person I talked to was like another little signpost along the way. They would tell me, oh, you should talk to this person or that person, or I know somebody who would be so interested in this. And so I just had tons of conversations, and I felt like the Spirit was just leading me down this trail that I just kept going to the next person to talk to until finally we had a group of people that were ready to say, yeah, let's make this into something. So my first question, and this you could just raise your hand, has everyone been to Sky Lake here, or are there anybody who hasn't been? I think everybody has. Okay, good. So you know then why this inspiration came about, because it is such a sacred, holy place. And it's so beautiful, and we do feel God's presence in that part of creation in particular. So we really, as we were on the, we formed this planting team to sit down and just figure out who we wanted to be, not necessarily what we would do, but that foundational, like, theological beliefs, our mission and vision and core values, all those things an organization needs to sort of build off of. So we did that work together, and really, as we talked about, we all could talk about people that we know in our lives that love being outdoors, that are spiritual but not religious, right? These people that work for the weekend, that want to be outside as much as possible. And so on a Sunday morning, they're hiking or going for a run or playing frisbee golf or, doing things out of doors, which makes sense because that's where they feel at peace. They feel a connection to something bigger than themselves. And, they want more of that. And so we thought, like that John Muir quote, who was a early outdoorsman, naturalist, big promoter of the parks and being outdoors. He said, I'd rather be in the mountains thinking about God than in church thinking about the mountains. And so we said, let's do both. Let's have that be church. Let's have church in the mountains, where people already feel a connection to God. And so that's sort of been the plan. Of course, the pandemic threw a wrench in our work, as everything has, but I've written some on our website. There's a blog portion of it. And in the first sort of introductory post, I said, we had no idea what we were doing to begin with. So now everyone else has joined us, right? Now the whole world doesn't know what they're doing. We all are figuring things out to do stuff in new ways. And so it kind of felt like you're already in this unknown wilderness. And God said, this isn't, I'm just going to keep leading you through this new, patch of briars that you have to get through, basically. So we've continued forward. We've launched an online presence, and we've held a couple events, workday at Sky Lake and a one-day clergy retreat, and we were going to have a bonfire, and then we got 40 inches of snow. So even some of our in-person stuff got canceled, but we are doing more online to build community. That's what this year was supposed to be about, building community. And then we're planning to launch in-person worship at the end of May. So the plan is to meet on Sunday evenings, 4 or 5 p.m. at Sky Lake. And the preference has already been for an outdoor space, which is beneficial for COVID precautions. So we're hopeful that we will be able to go forward with that. And we're hopeful that we can still build community in some online ways before then. So our intention was really to create sort of like a mini retreat every week, where we know it's kind of a big ask to get people to drive all the way to Sky Lake. And maybe they won't be able to do it every week, but average church attendance is already like twice a month anyway. So we figured, if people are coming out twice a month, if they do it once, like if we can get them there once, they're going to want to come back, right? So our hope was that we could introduce new people to Sky Lake, to sort of spread the love of that place, and to introduce people to all the other great things that they do. And we really wanted it to be like tech-free, no screens, no phones. Like, we'd encourage people to leave their phones in their car and really be this space of coming away from our over-connectedness in life. And so right now we're rethinking, do we need to put our services online as we get started? We don't know yet, but certainly we still want to provide that space. And I think it's even more needed now for people to have a time and place to disconnect from technology and from your busyness, and just coming out, driving through those stone gates. Something happens, right? There's like a bubble, and it feels like you're much farther away from your life than you really are. So we still want that, and we think it's even more needed right now to bring people out away from their busy overconnectedness. We want to help people who love the outdoors and nature to make that connection that they love the outdoors because they're longing for a connection with our Creator, the one who made all of this. So we want to help people make that connection and provide them with a community to experience that in. We talked about how so many younger people, especially, feel like, I can go for a hike or I can go for a run and listen to a really great podcast, and like, that's church for me. Well, the thing that's missing from a podcast and a run is community. And I think a lot of young people are missing that in their lives, but they might not necessarily be able to pinpoint that or figure out that that's what they're missing. Or they find it, in all these other places like the CrossFit gym and on their, pickup soccer league, and they find these places of community in these outdoor spaces. And so we want to be a spiritual community for them in an outdoor space where they want to be. So we know it's not for everyone, but it's for a specific group of people that we hope to connect with, that we don't think are being connected with in a lot of other sort of brick and mortar churches. And we're hopeful that this could be a space and an opportunity to add in for folks who are members of brick and mortar churches, or for pastors to have an opportunity to come worship later on a Sunday. It's something that I think doesn't have to replace your Sunday morning worship, but could certainly bring some fresh air, no pun intended, to your spiritual life, to have a space to be in creation with God. So that's the main overview. I'm happy to answer if there's like technical questions, but I also had some discussion stuff we could talk about as well.
I have one of the reasons why we asked Corey to come is because we are big Sky Lake fans at Central. The Lukens Jackson Fund sends a ton of campers every year, was part of like the racial desegregation of Sky Lake. And I'm so glad what you talked about, like bringing new people to Sky Lake and showing them the beauty there. What I can see is on a beautiful Sunday where we come to church in the morning and we're like, oh man, Sky Lake's going to be beautiful today. I'm going to go to church in the wild a little bit later and just like bask in it. So I love those pieces that you're bringing to that. And some of the things that you're talking about, like what's missing from a podcast and a run is community, and how you see some of those needs. And what I have a question, actually I have two questions. The first one is, if someone feels on their heart to create a ministry, whether it's within a church or not within a church, what is some advice you might have for them along that journey from nudge to creation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think probably it's pretty typical. What happened to me is that I felt this nudge, and then I tried to come up with the idea. And I was like up, I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about what do you mean, God? I can't do that. I kept thinking like, how am I, we could do some kind of like coffee house church. Well, that's been done. Like I had all these ideas and none of them were good. And I was getting upset and annoyed with myself and with God. Like, what are you giving me this call for? And none of this is going to work. And so I just had to kind of like sit with it, even though it was like this pestering kind of nudging call. I couldn't be the one to figure it out and to come up with it. It literally, the words came out of my mouth and it was like a light bulb went off. And so sit with it and then think about, what if I was, whatever that call is for a new ministry or, a new way of doing something in your church, maybe that you've always done it one way before, whatever it is that you're feeling nudged about, I think just sit with it and think about, what is my heart's greatest desire around this? And as soon as I said those words, like, I just want to be a pastor at Sky Lake. Why can't I do that? Because that doesn't exist. Well, there you go. You can make that, you can, whatever it is that you're longing for, other people are going to be longing for that too. And you kind of have to just sit with that discomfort of the nudge for a little bit until the Spirit is able to get through at least my thick skull. It took some time. Maybe it will take less time for other people. I don't know. But yeah, just sit with it and really meditate on what's my heart's greatest desire, or if I was being served by this ministry, or if I was coming to this new thing, what would I most want? And then tell somebody, once the light bulb goes off, you have to say the words out loud and start to refine it with other people. So all along the way, other people were giving ideas and brainstorming with me, and it wasn't just like the whole idea came and here it is, it's perfect. It was a lot of melding and molding along that trail to figure out exactly what it was we were moving towards.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much for that. My second question is around fundraising. For those of you in the adult ed chat that might not know, my other hat is I run a consultancy for fundraising for churches and ministries. And Corey is one of the best fundraisers I've ever met. She wrote like a blog post for me. And in the first year since this, I had she's built a team, and Church in the Wild has raised $10,000 right? Whew. And so we need a little bit of that juice. And so, but one of the really cool things about what Church in the Wild does is they tithe 10%. I don't know if you call it a tithe, but they've kind of adopted Sky Lake and Binghamton Food Rescue as like 10% of whatever comes in goes towards other groups in the area. That's actually, we wrote a grant at Central to Binghamton Food Rescue because of Corey doing some work with them. And I started doing some research on the feeding that they're doing over at the Dell Motel, which we've done some work with the clothing center. And so, Corey, can you talk about like how your team decided to do things a little bit differently with the funds that are being raised? That's very unique.
Yeah, we were inspired by another church plant that we did a training with. Dave Maslin leads regular trainings for people interested in planting new faith communities, and we did that class with him, and there were 2 other teams working on church plants, and one of them, said right up front that they were mainly going to be raising money to give to organizations in the community, and they talked about like doing picking a different organization each month and highlighting them and giving towards taking an offering for them each month, and we thought, wow, yeah, that is so, it's so faithful, to upfront say 10% of what we get, we're going to give away first. Like, that's kind of what we're all striving towards to do. So let's model that. Let's do that as an organization. And it's exactly what we want to be about. We want, in terms of our mission, we are working to support people who are already doing the work in the community. There is no reason for us to reinvent any wheels and to start anything new, where we can come in and support people who are doing really good work with, time and energy as well as funds. So we talked about, this year, each year we'll pick 1 or 2 solidarity partners, is what we're calling them, to support in the community. And right up front, we said Sky Lake. Sky Lake isn't going to be charging us anything to hold events and worship there. They only ask us to help out at work days and do some volunteering on site, which we are happy to do. We're going to rival you guys. We want to be Sky Lake's #1 supporters as Church in the Wild. So we can battle for that in the best of ways with
Challenge
our
accepted, Corey. I love it.
Service, time, and gifts to Sky Lake. So yeah, we want to be supporters of Sky Lake, and we want to be working for justice in our communities. And Binghamton Food Rescue is doing amazing work. It's super environmental. They're saving food from being thrown away and giving it to people who need it most. Like, that is perfect. It combines social justice and creation care, which are the one in the same. And that was another point I had on my list of things I wanted to talk about, is that we really see, social justice, working for to lift up the marginalized, as creation care. We are part of God's creation. So when humanity is suffering, that is creation care. We are all created, and we need to care for each other and the earth. And when we care for the earth, that improves life for the people on the margins, because we know it's those folks who are most affected by more severe storms, by pollution, but they live closest to the dumps. It's all these things. So when we are working for creation care, that encompasses social justice. When we're working for social injustice, that is creation care. So that is what we're all about. Those two things enjoined, and Binghamton Food Rescue is doing that work on the ground, and we are looking forward to volunteering with them and Binghamton Vines program. We're really excited to partner with them, and we're working on that partnership now. So those are the things we're doing, and it just is what we feel called to do, and we feel is important, because I think a lot of our target population that we're targeting with this new faith community, I think that group of people really want to feel like they're doing things that matter. So every week that we gather, there will be some kind of action people can take right then and there, whether it's, make a kit for a homeless person that you can keep in your car, or sign a letter or a petition about something. Like every week, we're going to have somebody focused on the mission opportunity that week that you can take home with you and do, or do immediately after or before worship, because we want people to feel like that we're not just doing this for ourselves, but we're doing this to actively make the world better in some tangible way. And I think all of us want to do that. It just feels so overwhelming to think about doing that alone. So every time that we're in community, we have that opportunity to be greater than the sum of our parts, and we can make an impact together. And so we want to have an opportunity every week for people to feel like they're doing something that made even a tiny bit of difference in the world.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I know Corey has some discussion questions that she would be happy to share, but if you guys want to unmute yourselves, if you have any questions about what's going on at Sky Lake, where they're thinking about doing stuff, anything about the ministry, anything about Pastor Corey's background, any of that kind of stuff. If you have some questions, we can certainly open it for that. And then I definitely want to see if we can leave time. We've got about 10, 15 minutes before we have to break. So we've still got some time.
When did you say you'd like to start the in-person Sunday evenings? Was it June?
End of May. We're aiming for. There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
But we hope that being outdoors will be doable. Whether or not we can have music of some kind, we'll hopefully have at least instrumental. There's a lot that could happen, this week, but between now and then. So that's our hope.
My son heard you. Alex heard you as he was getting ready to leave to go do tech team. He's like, "That's Corey." I said, "Yeah, she's talking about Church in the Wild that she's starting up at Sky Lake." So he was asking me about it, and I missed a little bit of what you said, because I was telling him about maybe the end of May there might be some in-person worship up there, and he goes, "Finally, church that's not church, and the place that I'd rather be at for church," or something like that. So the kids, the teens, that's exactly what they want. That's where they do want to feel like they're doing something that makes a difference in a place that they love. And some of these kids don't love being in that church building, you know what I mean? So Alex is so excited to hear your voice, and I just wanted to come in and say that, Corey.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, so that was kind of one of my questions for us to think about is, I think it's fairly universal, almost universal, I would say, that people feel a connection to God in creation. I at least every time I ask my congregation for God sightings, someone will say the sunrise or the sunset last night, or, you know, the beautiful sunshine, or you could tell we're in the southern tier because we really miss the sun. And when it comes out, we get really excited. But at least every time somebody brings a God sighting is something about creation. And so I have been thinking about why that is. And I would love to hear from you all about why you think humans seem to feel a connection to God in the outdoors.
I'm in New Hampshire, if I can make a comment here.
Absolutely.
And there's more sun here in New Hampshire. And as I look out the back window, you know, it's amazing, those days of sun. And I think it has something to do with our breathing. When I am in nature, especially in a wide open space, like in Montana or other places like that, I feel myself breathing and breathing in breath prayers and just feeling connected with God, because this is his gift that he's given us. And even here, I'm not in a big open space, but there's a birch tree and there's blue sky and there's birds out back, and it calms me, and I breathe differently, the same way you do when you're in a good spot spiritually and you breathe well. I have to think that's connected somehow.
I just think you feel closer to creation when you're out and not seeing, like I'm looking out my window and I see houses and cars. You just, they call what a thin space. Seems like you're touching the hands of God when you're out in creation. I mean, you're out in, I don't know if you know, there's another United Methodist camp not far from you. It's owned by the New York Conference, 𝘾𝙀𝙉𝙄𝙏𝙀𝙊, just outside of Hancock.
Yes.
And since I grew up in a New York Conference, we're still close to that because that's an all-volunteer camp. And the people that go there and work there, you know, the volunteers say the same thing. You know, 𝘾𝙀𝙀 is a special place. You feel that closeness with God because you're out there without any distractions. You can focus your mind and heart on God's creation, basically, I think.
Yeah, I think, you know, we talk about it's God's creation, and so God's fingerprints are throughout it, right? That we can learn something about who God is in what God has made. And, you know, all of that stuff out there is the oldest stuff there is in the world. So it kind of feels like this time, this ancient connection to a time before us, before it got so complicated. And while we know each person is made in the image of God as well, I think it is sometimes just easier to see that in creation than necessarily in ourselves or in each other. And it's scientifically proven that, you know, they've done these studies that when you spend time in nature, when you put your bare feet on grass or dirt or sand, some sort of natural element, it lowers your blood pressure and your heart rate, and it does really great things for your breathing and your body. So there's healing to be found there too, which I think is so important and necessary for us today. And, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that other camp, because we sort of talked about this as we were doing all of our theological work, that Sky Lake itself, the setting that we've chosen, how like in English class, you might have learned in high school, I remember learning about how like in some books, the setting is a character, like the setting itself takes on a bigger role in the story than in some others. And so we talked about like, how is our setting here a character, and what can that teach us? Because like we said, we learn about God through creation. And so what does the story of this character of Sky Lake teach us? And we talked about some of its history and how, the founders hopped the fence of this land, and they were willing to take chances to go explore it. And as soon as they saw it, they said, we need this. This is it. And I don't know how they did it, but they raised a bunch of money really quickly to be able to buy it. They convinced the conference to take out a loan and all this. So it's this incredible history of risk takers that went for it and hopped the fences, and like they pushed beyond the boundaries to be able to bring what they knew their people needed. And I think also just so many holy moments happening in one space just leaves that energy behind. And so I think most camps feel that way when you get there without even knowing about all of them. You just can feel that there's been a lot of goodness and blessings here. So that was my other question. Besides Sky Lake, is there a place that feels like a character in your life? Is there a setting that has taken on a major role for you?
I always feel peaceful when I'm at the ocean. Just looking out and seeing the waves come in, and it's peaceful to me.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned Montana before, and my sister has a home overlooking these beautiful mountains in a valley in Montana. And it's so meaningful to me that when I was about to have surgery, this was 20 years ago, she sent me a plane ticket, and she said, this is where I want you to come meditate before your surgery. And I sat on her back porch, and it's really important. And whenever I need to do that again, I just go there in my mind.
For me, there's this beautiful place up in Syracuse, and it was where Ben proposed to me, because we hiked there all the time when we lived up there. It's called Clark Reservation, and there are these really cool rocks that you could like climb on, or you could go down the rock stairs to where the water was. And we kind of like felt the presence of the ancients, almost like the community of saints, so to speak. Like our family was like there with us. You could just feel surrounded by that.
Well, mine is Sky Lake. I don't have I do go, I'll have to agree with Jill, the ocean, when I can get there. But, and that's usually in City, Maryland. But, Sky Lake's that I've spent a lot of time when I wasn't there for function or anything else, or when I just needed to get away, I would drive to Sky Lake. Or if I was out aimlessly driving, I'd end up at Sky Lake. And the closeness to God and the peace that, especially if you're trying to work through something, it takes all the busy, like you said, the busyness and the tech, and it takes it all away so that you can focus on what you need to focus on. So I have to say that Sky Lake's been my place since, and I never went there as a camper. I directed camps, but I was never there when I went as a camper, other than one Sundays, like during the year, all dressed up when our church closed. We'd go from the church, but now it became really important to me in my adult life rather than a child. And so, yeah, I can't think of another place, really. My mind keeps going back to Sky Lake.